I've always been the responsible one, the practical one, the one who meticulously plans every detail. My name is Paige Reynolds, and for the past 5 years, I've built what most would consider a successful career: project manager at a leading tech company, a luxurious company-provided apartment in an upscale suburb, and an $85,000 salary that allows me to support others. But success in your career doesn't always translate to happiness, especially when family dynamics are complicated. Growing up, I watched my parents, Eleanor and Richard Reynolds, shower my older sister Victoria with endless attention and adoration. She was their golden child, their perfect firstborn who could do no wrong. While I worked part-time jobs through college to earn my business degree, Vicky floated through private university on charm and our parents' constant indulgence, before eventually dropping out to become a social media influencer. Don't misunderstand, I loved my sister, but I always knew my place in the family hierarchy. Every other weekend, I make the 2-hour drive back home to visit my parents. It's become a ritual over the past 5 years: wrap up work on Friday, carefully select thoughtful gifts from the boutiques near my apartment, and head to their house with my yoga mat and latest business book in tow. Sometimes I question why I maintain this routine, but then I remember the loan, that extravagant wedding loan that changed everything. 7 years ago, Victoria announced her engagement to Blake Harrison, a wealthy entrepreneur she'd been dating. Instead of the sensible celebration I proposed, she demanded an Instagram-worthy extravaganza, far beyond our family's means. I still remember that evening when my parents revealed their plans to finance her dream wedding. "Mom, Dad, this makes no sense," I said, sitting at our kitchen table, my project management certification textbook temporarily forgotten. "Why can't Vicky take responsibility for the loan if she wants such an elaborate wedding?" Eleanor's face tightened in that familiar way, her fingers instinctively reaching for her phone to check Victoria's latest Instagram post. "Your sister has some complications with her credit history. The banks won't approve her for a loan right now." "Then perhaps she should consider a more modest celebration," I suggested, already anticipating the response. "Mind your own business, Paige," Mom snapped, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against the table. "This is about your sister's special day. Stop being so selfish." That word, selfish. They wielded it like a weapon whenever I dared to be the voice of reason. Richard just sat there, nodding along with Eleanor like he always did when it came to Victoria's demands. I knew then how this would play out, but I never imagined the extent of the financial burden it would become. Looking back now, I realized those weekend visits weren't just about being a dutiful daughter, they were about trying to repair the financial damage Victoria had left behind. Every 2 weeks, I'd carefully select premium gifts, make the long drive to their house, and pretend everything was fine. Pretend I didn't resent being the only one keeping our family financially stable. But last Friday, everything shifted dramatically. I pulled up to their house in my company-leased SUV, arms laden with carefully chosen boutique presents. The moment I stepped through that door, my world turned upside down. There, perfectly posed on our living room sofa like a lifestyle blogger's photo shoot, was Victoria, and she wasn't alone. 2 immaculately dressed children I'd never met were playing with brand new toys at her feet. The scene struck me like a physical blow. My sister, who had vanished from our lives completely, who had blocked me across all social media platforms, who had ignored every email about the wedding loan, was sitting there staging photos for her Instagram, acting as if nothing had ever happened. And our parents? They were fawning over her like she was some celebrity gracing them with her presence, not someone who had abandoned them to financial devastation. "Oh hey, Paige," Victoria said casually, adjusting her designer sunglasses while positioning her phone for another selfie. Then she turned toward the kitchen and called out, Mom, I'm absolutely famished. Is my special quinoa bowl ready yet? I stood frozen in the doorway, premium shopping bags growing heavy in my arms, watching Eleanor and Richard beam at Victoria's demanding tone. Some things, it seemed, never changed. But others were about to transform in ways none of us could have anticipated. Dinner that night was like an episode of a reality show gone wrong. Eleanor rushed around the kitchen, preparing Victoria's elaborate dietary requests while my carefully selected gifts sat forgotten on the side table. Richard couldn't stop grinning as he watched his grandchildren, my niece Sophie and nephew Noah, I supposed, playing with their expensive electronic tablets. They were beautiful children, 5 and 3 years old, dressed in miniature designer clothes, but I couldn't help feeling a wave of bitterness that I'd discovered their existence through Victoria's casual Instagram stories rather than a family announcement. So, I finally broke the Instagram-worthy tableau as we sat around the dining table. What prompted this sudden return, Vicky? She shrugged, delicately sampling her specially prepared meal. Just missed Mom and Dad, you know? Her tone was breezy, as if she hadn't ghosted us all for 5 years while flaunting her perfect life on social media. I took a measured breath, channeling my project management skills to keep my voice level. Does this mean you're finally going to contribute to the wedding loan payments? The perfectly curated atmosphere chilled instantly. Victoria's camera-ready smile faltered, but before she could respond, Eleanor jumped in. Paige, this isn't the time to discuss finances, she chided, glancing nervously at Victoria's phone, likely worried this moment would end up on social media. Can't we just celebrate having the family together again? I wanted to scream. The family is together again? What about the past 5 years when I was the only one preventing financial collapse? Every month without fail, I'd been transferring $1,500 to cover their expenses because they couldn't manage after paying for Victoria's influencer-worthy wedding. But sure, let's not tarnish this perfect family reunion with talk of money. The rest of the weekend played out like a bizarre social media story where I wasn't tagged. Eleanor and Richard spent every moment capturing perfect family moments with Victoria and the kids while I might as well have been a shadow in the background. Before leaving on Sunday, I found Victoria alone in the kitchen, staging her morning coffee for Instagram. How long are you planning to stay? I asked, maintaining my professional composure. Oh, just a short visit, she said, adjusting her designer silk robe for the camera. Blake's waiting at our place. We just needed a little family content for my followers. Blake, her wealthy husband, whose strict control over their finances was supposedly the reason she couldn't help repay the loan for her Instagram-perfect wedding. The same parents who were now acting like she was an A-list celebrity gracing them with her presence. As I drove back to my apartment that evening, my phone lit up with a text from Mom. Victoria just posted the most amazing photos of her house tour. That marble kitchen island is to die for. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, suppressing the urge to respond with what I really thought. Maybe she could monetize that gorgeous house tour and pay you back for her wedding. But I maintained my silence, like always. The next 2 weeks brought an endless stream of notifications from Mom, each one celebrating Victoria's latest posts, her luxury home decor, her designer wardrobe, her picture-perfect children. Every update felt like a deliberate jab. The daughter who'd ghosted them was suddenly their social media star, while I, their consistent financial support for years, was relegated to background noise. When I arrived at my parents' house that next weekend, something felt wrong from the moment I pulled up. Their cars were in the driveway, but the usual welcome was missing. Instead, I found them in the living room, arranging lighting for what looked like a photo setup. "What's going on?" I asked, setting down my designer work bag. "Is everything okay?" Eleanor barely glanced up from her phone. Victoria and the kids are coming soon. They're staying for a while. We need to get the house Instagram ready. I drew a measured breath, channeling my project management skills. Fine, but my room stays as is. I need somewhere to stay during my visits. I met Eleanor's eyes directly. Promise you won't give away my room. Of course not, darling, Mom said, making a heart gesture like she'd seen in TikTok videos. I promise. The next 2 months disappeared in a whirlwind of deadlines and meetings. I secured a major tech project that required my complete focus, earning recognition from upper management but leaving little time for family obligations. My calls with Eleanor became increasingly brief and distant. She was preoccupied too, though I'd soon discover the real reason. Finally, after successfully delivering the project and receiving a substantial performance bonus, I decided to surprise my parents with an extended visit. I invested in premium gifts, a state-of-the-art smart coffee system for Mom and a professional-grade tool collection for Dad. After 2 months immersed in work, I was actually anticipating some family time. The moment I stepped through the door that Friday evening, I knew something was horribly wrong. Sophie and Noah's designer toys were artfully arranged throughout the house like a lifestyle blog shoot. Eleanor's perfectly maintained smile faltered when she saw me. Paige, what are you doing here? The question struck like a physical blow. I came to visit, as I have been for the past 5 years. Oh, Eleanor stammered, glancing anxiously at her phone. We weren't expecting you. Victoria emerged from the kitchen, her Instagram-ready smirk in place as I presented the gifts to our parents. She rolled her eyes behind her designer frames. Always trying to outdo everyone, aren't you, Paige? I ignored her performative disdain and asked directly, when are you returning to your picture-perfect house? Victoria's practiced smile widened. I'm not. Blake and I are divorced. This is my new content creation space now. The premium coffee maker nearly slipped from my grasp. Divorced? The supposedly perfect Instagram marriage that had justified all those loans and sacrifices was over, and she was moving back in with our parents who were still paying off her social media-worthy wedding? But the real shock was still to come. After dinner, I headed toward my room, only to be halted by Eleanor's hesitant voice. Darling, about your room, we gave it to Victoria for her content creation. We converted her old room into a themed nursery for Sophie and Noah's social media shoots. The world seemed to spiral beneath my feet. You promised, I whispered, my project manager composure cracking. You explicitly promised you wouldn't touch my room. Don't be so theatrical, Richard interjected. We've renovated the storage closet for you, installed a bed, even added some lighting. A closet. They had relegated me to a closet to accommodate the daughter who had ghosted them, whose wedding debt they were still paying, whom I had been unknowingly supporting through my monthly transfers. A storage closet, my voice emerged with unnatural steadiness. You're moving me to a closet after I've been covering your expenses for 5 years? I turned to my sister. What about income? How do you plan to contribute to the household expenses? Victoria reclined on what used to be my bed, scrolling through her Instagram feed. I don't need a regular job. Blake's paying $5,000 monthly in alimony, plenty for me and the kids to maintain our lifestyle. And the household expenses? I persisted. The increased utilities? The groceries? The wedding loan you still haven't helped pay off? Mom and Dad are happy to handle that, Victoria shrugged, positioning her phone for another selfie. Right on cue, our parents nodded enthusiastically, like background extras in her social media story. Nausea rose in my throat as I watched them. They're happy because I've been sending them $1,500 every month, I said through clenched teeth. Money that's apparently been funding your content creation lifestyle too. Richard's expression hardened. That's quite enough, Paige. You're being selfish and pretentious. The closet is perfectly adequate for your visits. Selfish? A harsh laugh escaped me. I'm selfish for supporting you financially while I gestured at Victoria, vanished for 5 years after burdening you with her wedding loan? We're done with your career woman attitude, Eleanor snapped, her eyes darting to Victoria's phone, probably worried this scene would damage her daughter's influencer image. If you can't accept the arrangement, perhaps you should go. Victoria's perfectly practiced smirk was the final blow. I looked at their faces, Richard's corporate disappointment, Eleanor's social media conscious anger, Victoria's influencer superiority, and something fundamental inside me shattered. Without another word, I turned and walked out, not just from the room or the house, but from their carefully curated fantasy world. They were too busy planning their next family photo shoot to try stopping me. Back in my luxury apartment, I uncorked a bottle of wine and opened my banking app. The monthly transfer to my parents' account glared at me from the screen, $1,500 scheduled for processing in 3 days. My manicured finger hovered over the cancel button. All these years, I'd been the responsible one, the successful daughter, the one who supported them without complaint, and what had it earned me? A storage closet and a family that worshipped their prodigal influencer daughter who'd abandoned them. I took another sip of wine, my project manager's mind cataloging all the times I'd stayed silent, all the transfers I'd made while Victoria flaunted her picture-perfect lifestyle on Instagram, all the moments my parents had dismissed my concerns to cater to her latest whim. The solution was obvious, like a clear project deliverable. With the same decisiveness I used in my corporate decisions, I canceled the recurring transfer. Let Victoria support them with her alimony money. Let her handle the monthly expenses and grocery shopping. Let her confront the reality of the debt she dumped on our parents. I was done being their financial safety net. A month of silence followed, no updates from Eleanor about Victoria's latest sponsored posts, no messages about Sophie and Noah's curated childhood moments. Nothing. I immersed myself in work, channeling my energy into a new tech project, but couldn't completely suppress the emptiness in my chest. Instagram and Facebook became my unfiltered window into their world, showing me precisely where I stood in the family hierarchy. Eleanor's social feeds overflowed with perfectly staged photos, my amazing daughter and her precious angels, Victoria and Eleanor creating Pinterest-worthy cookies, Victoria and Richard orchestrating park photoshoots with the kids. Carefully curated family moments that excluded me entirely. Each post stung like a fresh wound, but I forced myself to watch. I needed these reminders of why I'd finally stepped away. Then came the inevitable call. "Where's the money?" Eleanor demanded, skipping any pretense of greeting. Her voice carried the sharp edge of entitlement. I maintained my professional tone. "I've terminated the transfers." The silence stretched so long I checked if the call had dropped. "You what?" "I've terminated them," I repeated with project manager clarity. "I'm no longer providing financial support. You can't do this to us." Eleanor's voice escalated to hysteria. "We depend on that money. How dare you be so selfish?" I nearly laughed at the predictable accusation. "Selfish? I've supported you for 5 years while Victoria lived in her Instagram-worthy house and shared her designer shopping hauls. Let her contribute her alimony now. She has children to support." Eleanor's voice trembled with indignation. "You ungrateful little, after everything we've sacrificed for you." "Sacrificed for me?" My laugh held no humor. Like demoting me to a storage closet? Or financing Victoria's social media wedding that you're still paying off? Or perhaps you mean ignoring my existence unless you needed money. You've always been jealous of your sister's lifestyle, Eleanor hissed. You and your corporate success dash. Your manipulation doesn't. I ended the call with the same finality I used to terminate failing projects. My hands shook, but not from guilt. For the first time in years, I felt the same control I had in my professional life. The notifications started flooding in immediately. Victoria's Instagram DM came first, "You jealous corporate drone. You've always resented my social media success and that mom and dad adore me. You're just bitter about my lifestyle." I deleted it without engaging. Richard's message was terse. "Your mother's influencer posts are full of tears because of you. I hope you're satisfied." Satisfied wasn't the word. Exhausted maybe. Exhausted from being the family's financial failsafe. Exhausted from watching them prioritize Victoria's social media presence no matter how many times she exploited them. A barrage of messages followed, escalating from desperate to hostile. I read each one but maintained radio silence. Let them experience what it felt like to be ghosted for a change. A week later, my phone lit up with Eleanor's caller ID. "Hello, darling," she cooed, her voice Instagram story sweet. "We miss you terribly. Won't you come visit? In the storage closet?" I replied with corporate coolness. "We could arrange the living room sofa," she suggested, her confidence wavering. "I'll pass. Please, Paige." Her tone shifted to performance-worthy pleading. "We're drowning without your support. The bills are mounting and dash." "That's no longer my concern," I interrupted with project manager efficiency. "You made your choice when you displaced me from my room for Victoria's content creation space." Eleanor launched into her practiced crying routine, the same manipulative performance I'd witnessed countless times when she wanted something. "You're being heartless, Paige. We're your parents. We need help with the expenses, the loan installments dash." "The loan payments for Victoria's social media wedding," I clarified. "The wedding she dumped on you and never contributed toward. Why not ask her for assistance? She has the children's expenses." Eleanor's voice rose to influencer pitch. "Covered by Blake's generous alimony," I countered. "The $5,000 monthly payments she flaunts but won't share. Accept it, Mom, she's exploiting you again, and you're enabling her." "That's false. She's evolved." I shook my head at my phone's screen. "No, she hasn't. But I have." I ended the call, finally blocking their numbers. I was done with the emotional manipulation, done with the guilt trips, done being the family's financial foundation while being treated like an inconvenient prop in Victoria's perfect family narrative. That evening, I opened my MacBook and began analyzing real estate options with my project manager's precision. The $1,500 monthly transfers I'd been sending my parents would accumulate into a substantial down payment for my own property. It was time to invest in my future instead of financing their enabling behavior. A week later, Victoria breached my defenses using an unknown number. "You're destroying them," she accused, her voice carrying the same dramatic flair she used in her Instagram stories. "They can barely afford basic necessities." "Interesting how that wasn't your priority when you saddled them with your wedding loan," I responded. "Or during your 5-year social media disappearing act. That situation was completely different," she exclaimed with influencer intensity. "I had issues with Blake and Dash." "And now you have substantial alimony," I interrupted. "That's for my children's lifestyle. Just like their resources are for your lifestyle? Their house? My room? The corporate edge in my voice surprised even me. You know what's actually destroying them, Victoria? You are. You always have been. You just never had to acknowledge it because I was managing your chaos. You're just envious that they prioritize me, she sneered. I laughed with genuine amusement. You're absolutely right. They do prioritize you. They always have, and that won't change. But priority doesn't cover expenses, does it? That was my role, and I've resigned. I terminated the call and blocked her latest number. Let her learn to support her lifestyle independently. Let her discover what adult responsibility means. My real estate agent's call came that afternoon. She'd found an ideal condo in an upscale neighborhood within my price range. As I scheduled the viewing, I felt an unfamiliar lightness in my chest. The burden of my family's expectations, their incessant demands, their endless favoritism of Victoria's social media presence, it was all dissolving. I was no longer the responsible project manager who had to troubleshoot every crisis, no longer the overlooked daughter accepting whatever attention they spared between Victoria's Instagram posts. I was simply Paige Reynolds, and for the first time, that identity felt complete. News spreads rapidly through family networks, even during communication blackouts. My cousin Audrey reached out one evening, her tone cautious. I thought you should know, she began. Eleanor's telling everyone that you've abandoned them, that you're retaliating because they helped Victoria during her difficult transition. I laughed dryly. Is that their new narrative? Helping Victoria? They're working extra hours, Audrey continued. Richard's completely drained. Victoria's still not seeking employment, just spending her alimony on designer clothes and trendy brunches for her Instagram content. And Sophie and Noah. Audrey paused. Your parents are essentially their full-time caregivers while Victoria's out creating content. She claims she's processing her divorce trauma through social media therapy. You know what's ironic? I said, gazing out at the city skyline. For 5 years, I transferred $1,500 monthly. I visited religiously. I was present for every celebration, every milestone. But the moment Victoria needed content space, I was downgraded to a storage closet, Audrey. I understand, she replied softly. It's completely unfair. Yes, it is. But it's no longer my responsibility. After ending the call, I returned to the condo for another viewing. It was impeccable with 2 spacious bedrooms, a gourmet kitchen, and most significantly, it represented my independence. No family manipulation, no guilt-inducing tactics, no being relegated to storage to accommodate someone else's social media ambitions. I submitted my offer that evening. The following day, Eleanor bypassed my blocks using Richard's work number. Your father's health is deteriorating from the overtime, she began without preamble. We desperately need your support, Paige. What about Victoria's contribution? I countered. Is she still creating shopping haul content while you and Dad work yourselves to exhaustion? Eleanor's telling silence provided the answer. Interestingly, I continued, I've just made an offer on a condo. The down payment comes from the funds I previously sent you, money you channeled into supporting Victoria's influencer lifestyle while treating me like an unwelcome intruder. How can you be so cold? Eleanor's voice wavered. We're your parents. Yes, you are, and Victoria's my sister, but I'm finished being the family financial cushion while you treat me as an afterthought. You're not an afterthought. Eleanor protested. We care about you. No, Mom. You care about my financial support. There's a distinction. I heard her beginning another performance of tears, but I remained unmoved. I'd developed immunity to the emotional manipulation. I need to go, I stated. I have a meeting with my realtor. Please, Paige, she pleaded. We can negotiate. We'll set up proper sleeping arrangements in the living room for your visits. Goodbye, Mom. As I ended the call, my phone lit up with a message from my agent. My offer had been accepted. I was about to become a property owner. I surveyed my luxury apartment, contemplating all the weekends sacrificed at my parents' house, all the savings diverted to supporting them, all the opportunities postponed to serve as their financial safety net. Time reveals truth with perfect clarity. From my new condo's sleek balcony, I gaze at the downtown skyline, a view I could never afford while bankrolling Victoria's influencer lifestyle. The mortgage fits comfortably within my project manager's salary, and for the first time since graduation, I'm investing in my future instead of financing my sister's social media past. Audrey keeps me informed about the family dynamics, though I never inquire. Victoria continues living with our parents, channeling her $5,000 monthly alimony into designer wardrobes and spa content while reluctantly covering the bare minimum of Sophie and Noah's expenses. Eleanor and Richard are pulling double shifts, their faces betraying the exhaustion of supporting 3 additional people when they should be planning their retirement. They've finally cleared Victoria's wedding loan, the debt that catalyzed this whole saga. The irony of paying off a marriage that dissolved into Instagram divorce announcements isn't lost on me. I heard through Audrey that Eleanor told her book club they could finally breathe easier, only to immediately launch into a story about her ungrateful younger daughter abandoning them during their social media transition. Eleanor was showcasing Victoria's latest family photo shoot at Sunday dinner, Audrey shared during our last call. She kept emphasizing how at least one of her daughters understands family values. I responded with a professional smile. How on brand for her. Wouldn't you like to share photos of your new place? Audrey suggested. Show them your success? Absolutely not, I stated with project manager firmness. They lost the privilege of celebrating my achievements when they tried relegating me to a storage closet. I've maintained strict privacy about my new address, and that won't change. I can predict their responses with perfect accuracy. Eleanor's carefully worded social media shade about entitled children, Richard's paternal disappointment, Victoria's passive-aggressive Instagram stories about showing off. They would inevitably twist my success into a narrative about family obligation, about how I should redirect my resources to supporting their enabling of Victoria's lifestyle. But I've moved beyond caring. Let them craft their stories. Let them whisper to relatives about their cold-hearted daughter who stopped subsidizing their poor decisions. Let them exhaust themselves with extra shifts while Victoria perfects her divorced mom content creator persona. Sometimes, enjoying a glass of wine on my balcony as the sun sets over the city, I reflect on that storage closet they prepared for me. In retrospect, it was their greatest gift, the final push I needed to break free, to stop accepting background roles in Victoria's social media narrative while funding their entire production.